All right, so the stuff that we just finished doing, we're actually going to, that in itself doesn't really help you do anything, all right? But it helps you do what we're going to do today, all right? And that is something that you can use in, quote, real life, all right, as they say. All right, so you can. Like I taught physics, there's so many quadratic equations and formulas and stuff in physics, and people use physics all the time. All right? No. Well, this whole world is full of physics. All right? Everything in here, just sitting in this building is just, are you listening to me? I've started. Thank you. Everything in this building is full of physics, and there had to be somebody that knew physics and knew math to be able to do stuff, to have electricity, to have the walls stay up and not fall down. Okay, just everything that we do, your phone, your car, everything has to do with physics. And maybe you won't do the physics, but you will, what's the word? Not appreciate, but you will be the beneficiaries of physics. That's what I was trying to think of. All right, so it's not that it's not important. It's very important. All right, people downplay math all the time. Just like, why do they teach that stuff in high school? Why don't they just teach how to balance your checkbook, or to, nobody even uses checkbooks anymore, and manage your money and all that. And that's good. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But there's got to be people in this world that does stuff. Like Elon Musk. He's taken rockets up into space. He's doing all kinds of stuff. Electric cars. I'm kind of like a little bit. But I think eventually electric, things like that are going to take over. You got to know physics. And that's what it's all about. So we got to have people out there who are building these things and are coming up with these ideas. Space Link, I think that's what it's called. You ever hear that? That's incredible. It's like the internet all around the world, right? Dealing with satellites and stuff like that. So, I think that's going to be a huge thing in the future. Do you hear about the storms like in North Carolina and these places down south? A lot of people, their internet got all wiped out. And so he went down there and just gave out all these Starlink things so people could have internet connection. And today's world, internet is a lifeline. So, so physics is super, super important. So that means, going back to what we're doing today, this is like the foundation. This is groundwork stuff, It's not just because you can solve by factoring, you're going to be able to solve the world's problems. But in order to do the things that we have in this world, somebody had to know how to factor and all that kind of thing, all right? So it's important. It's really important. Okay, here we go. We talked about a quadratic polynomial in the last lesson. So today, we're going to talk about a quadratic, and I think somebody might have even mentioned this yesterday or the day before, but now we're actually going to talk about it. But this is not just a polynomial, it's a quadratic what? Equation. What does an equation have that just a regular polynomial doesn't have? It's got an equal sign, okay? So when you see equation, you're talking about equal sign. So here it is. What was the quadratic polynomial? Do you remember it? ax squared plus bx plus c. We stopped right there before today. But now what are we going to do? It's going to equal something. And here's what it equals. We set it equal to 0. All right? And that's super famous, super popular equation right there. One of the most popular equations in math. All right? So there it is. Plus. Make that look more like a plus. All right? So that's super important. We're going to do a lot with this in the next several chapters. Today we're just going to kind of do basic stuff with it. You may or may not in Algebra 1, like some of you guys say, oh yeah, I had that. And the rest of you are like, oh, I've never seen that before in my life. But now you're going to see it. It might be the first time, but that's okay. Here's a thing called the zero product property. To tell you the truth, I probably wouldn't have known this name, but it makes sense. Zero product. All right, everybody look. So here's what it says. It says if A times B equals 0, then, now take a look at this. These two numbers right here multiplied together equals 0. So tell me something about A or something about B. one of them has to be 0, or both of them could be 0, correct? Would you agree? So that's what you want to understand here. This is super important for what we're doing today. So if two things are multiplied together and your answer is 0, how do you get a 0 when you multiply? One of them has to be a 0, right? So that means then what? A is equal to 0, or B is going to equal 0. Now, they don't write this in the book, but you could say, or what? Or both, right? Okay. Both of them could be equal to 0. You with me? We're going to use that. That's super important for what we're going to do. So let's jump right into an example. You're like, Mr. Hamrick, haven't even learned anything yet. Well, we have. We learned how to factor, right? And we're going to take a quadratic polynomial. We're going to factor it, set it equal to 0, and then we're going to apply this rule right here. So it's x squared plus 2x minus 24 equals 0. All right, so now let's put our factoring in use. So let's factor this thing first. First of all, is there a greatest common factor? Is there anything in common with all three of those? There are not, so we can just go ahead and work on this. This is not one of our special factorings. This is not a difference of two squares. It's not a perfect square or anything like that. So it's just a regular old factoring. So what do we do with a regular trinomial factoring? Put an x here and an x here. This times this has to be negative 24, so one's plus and one's minus. Let's think of the numbers that multiply to be negative 24 and add up to be 2. Well, not 24 and 1, not 2 and 12, not 8 and 3. What is it? 6 and 4, right? So which one's going to be the 6, the positive or the negative? Positive, because when I add them up, I got to get a positive answer, so the bigger one has to be positive. You with me? All right, so that's what we did yesterday. Stop right there. But today, what did we learn? When I have two things multiplied together and it equals 0, what can I say about either one of those things that are being multiplied? Right, so I could say that x plus 6 is equal to 0, correct? Or I could say x minus 4 is equal to 0. Now, I didn't say x is 0, did I? All right, I said this whole thing that's being multiplied, this has to be 0. So that's what I do. And now I do super easy algebra, subtract 6 from both sides. So what is x equal to? Negative 6. What's x equal to here? Positive 4. So we actually get two answers. You're not really used to that, but in quadratics, you get multiple answers a lot, okay? So you get two answers. I'm not going to do this for every single problem. I'm going to do this on the first one. After that, you can kind of do this on your own if you wanted to. Let's just double check to see if that works. How could we check to see if that works? Plug it back in. So what's the first one going to be? It's negative 6 and it's squared. Notice I put that in parentheses because I'm squaring the negative as well, correct? Plus 2 times what? Negative 6 and then minus 24. Let's see what that... Now that should come out to what? It should come out to 0. Let's see if it does. What's that? 36. What's that? Minus 12 minus 24. That's 36. What's negative 12 minus 24? Negative 36. Check it out. It does equal 0. So does that work? Yep, it checks. You could do the same thing with this. I'm not going to for the sake of time, but you could plug it in and see if it works. All right, let's do another one. That was example 1. This is example 2. Again, notice what's the difference on what they're asking you to do. It says to solve. It doesn't say just factor. We're actually solving for x, finding what x is equal to. So here it is. 3x squared plus 6 equals negative 11x. We got to do something first. All right, we got to do something first before we do what we were going to do before. If you notice, they had this already set up perfectly for you. This was already, this thing right here was already in that quadratic equation form, wasn't it? All right, the ax squared was first, the bx was in the middle, and the c was here on the end, and it was equal to 0. Is this problem right here in that quadratic form? It's not. So what are you going to do? You're going to put it in that form. That's right. So the 3x squared, that's first. That's good. What's going to go next? The 11x. But is it going to be a minus 11x? No, because I got to move it to the left side. If I move it to the left side, what does it become? Plus 11x. That 6 is already on the left-hand side, so I can just keep it plus 6. By getting rid of this, what does that equal now? Equals 0. So now you can go ahead and start with this. Does that make sense? If you wanted to, you could do a little guess and check thing. Let's just do it once, just to see if we get lucky. So what would you pick? 3x and what? X. Let's try, we could do 6 and 1. I don't know. Let's do 3 and 2. I don't even know what it is. It is a 3 and a 2. So watch. Plus 3 plus 2. Let's see if that works. You know the first and the last are okay, right? What about the outside and inside? So I got 3x, 3 times 2 is 6, plus 3, that's 9. That doesn't work, does it? Let's try one difference. Let's switch that around. Instead of 3 and 2, let's go what? 2 and 3. Let's see if that works. Again, outside, inside. Outside is 9x, inside is 2x. Yep, that's 11x, isn't it? So sometimes doing that guess and check is a little bit easier. If I wanted to, I could have gone 3 times 6, which is 18. Then you break down 18, right? What times what is equal to 18, and those same two numbers added together is 18, or sorry, equals 11, blah, blah, blah. You could have done all that, and you eventually got to this. But the guessing and checking, it's worth a shot, right? Especially if the numbers are relatively small. Okay, it's worth a shot just to guess a few numbers and see if it works. All right, so I'm not belittling the guess and check method. But if you start doing it and you're like 4 or 5 in and it's still not working, well, you're probably almost there anyway if you tried that many times. But there you go. So now, is that our answer? Do I circle that? No, because we're trying to do what? Trying to solve for x. Do I have x by itself yet? No. So these two things are being multiplied and they equal 0. So what are you going to do with them? Set them equal to 0. All right? So you set this equal to 0, and then you set this equal to 0. Does everybody understand why we're doing that? It's because of this thing. Remember that? Okay, if two things are multiplied together and your answer is 0, then either A is 0 or what? B is 0. All right? So that's what we're doing. This is our A, this is our B. But now you got to do a little math. Can you do this in your head? Should be able to. Minus 2, divide by 3, so what's x? Negative 2/3. This is easy. Subtract 3. X is negative 3. There's one answer. There's another answer. If you want to check, you can. I'm not going to make you check. There are some teachers out there that force you to check. I'm not going to do that. All right? What did I say we're out of here? 14? Oh, I only got like 2 more minutes. Which one should I do? I would say 5. I don't know if I have time to do 5, though. Let's do example 4. 3, you can look in the book on how to factor. It's a little bit of a different factoring. It's not really that hard. It's not even a trinomial. Just do a greatest common factor, and then you're going to just set them equal to 0. 3 is kind of easy. So this says, write a standard form of quadratic equation whose solutions are negative 1/2 and 3. So this time, they throw a little wrench into this, okay? Monkey wrench. So they actually give you the solutions, and you want to come up with the equation. So what in the world? Well, let's take a look. Let's go to that first one. Look, what if they gave you this? Could you come up with that equation? Well, let's zoom it up a little bit. Look, that's your answer, negative 6 and 4, correct? So you could put it into this, but look, this is what? The opposite sign, isn't it? And this is the opposite sign. So what you're going to do, watch carefully, because I don't have much time. What you're going to do is set it up like this. Everybody watch. So if this is my answer, I'm kind of working backwards. So I'm going to go x minus what? Negative 1/2. And I'm going to go what? X minus 3. Because if I was here, this would be x plus 1/2, right? I would set both of these equal to 0, and x is negative 1/2, and x is positive 3. Yes? Everybody see that? All right. But what am I going to do? I want a quadratic equation out of this. Minus and negative is going to be plus. So how do I do a quadratic equation? Yeah, let's do this. So foil it, right? Just foil it. So x times x is x squared. And then what's the next one? Negative 3x. What's the middle one, or the inner one? Plus 1/2 x. And then what's the last one? Minus, what's 1/2 times 3? How do I do that? It's just 3 over 2, isn't it? We're almost there. That equals 0. Don't pack up. Why is everybody packing up? What's this? Negative 3 plus 1/2. Put this over 2. Put this over 2. That would be what? Negative 6 over 2 plus 1 over 2 is what? Negative 5 over 2, correct? All right, minus what? 3 over 2 equals 0. Now, to put it in quadratic, we usually like the a, b, and c's to be nice whole numbers, not fractions. So what can we do to make this not a fraction? Yeah, multiply everything by 2. And the right side as well. We're almost done. Hold on. I know you're dying to get into your next class, but just wait. So that's 2x squared. What happens here? That cancels. It's minus 5x. This cancels. That's minus 3. And that equals 0. So that, if you wanted to solve this, if you wanted to start with this and solve it, guess what your answer is going to be? Negative 1/2 and 3. All right, but this time they kind of gave you the answers first, and you got to come up with the question. And the key is this. Almost done. Watch. The key, when they give you the answers, is to go x minus whatever the answer is and x minus whatever the other answer is. Okay, that right there is the key to doing that problem. All right, so now you're doing 1 to 29 odds. 1 to 29 odd. Now, on the lesson plans, it says we're taking a quiz tomorrow, right? We're going to push it the next day because it took us 2 days to do that other section, all right? But this is due today, or due tomorrow, sorry, 1 to 29, just the odds. And that's it.